What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. Go over some of the data points, break down what's really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid's down 1.8%, 216 the low, 229 the high. So Lucid's just getting dragged down with the broader market. As far as volume, 72 million shares being traded, 137 is the average. Majority of the volume being done today is linked to algorithmic trading, and you can kind of tell that based on this by looking at the secondary market as well as the dark pool. So secondary market, surprisingly enough, you are seeing some institutions buying up Lucid. So they are buying the dip. You actually, surprisingly as well, did have a string of buying first thing. That's what caused it to go higher. Question is, why? There wasn't really any news, no SEC filings from Lucid today to kind of justify this abnormal spike. So I don't know if it was just a misclick or potentially they know something, but nonetheless, it was short-lived. Shorts did increase at this point, 1.5 million shares. So I'll go over what they are doing as of right now, but essentially you kind of have the market flip-flopping. And so we do know going into today that the states did delay their kind of strike on Iran. Market saw that as very optimistic and was really moving higher. You even did have this individual right here, so Fed Reserve Governor Christopher Waller hinting at a potential rate cut for July. Doesn't necessarily make that much sense based on everything. And so far, there is a 14.5% likelihood of that occurring, of a 25 basis point cut. But nonetheless, you kind of have that. And then a couple hours later, you have Barkin, another Fed speaker, ultimately saying that there's nothing urgent in the data warranting rate cuts. So pretty much on the exact same day, you were having the Feds say conflicting information. So the market is just having like, what the hell is going on? Like, what's happening in the Middle East? Is the states ultimately going to attack? Are they going to get involved? There's just a lot of what ifs in the market, and the market doesn't like gray in reality. The data that did come out as well, first thing, wasn't all that great. So you had manufacturing index coming in at -4. Forecast for that was 1. So that, alongside a lot of the other data, kind of justified the market to go down, regrettably. But like I said, no news from Lucid, no SEC filings or anything like that. There was this that did come out, posted by Lucid Oasis, and ultimately kind of showing that Lucid made a new website for Germany and a new fleet program. So ultimately, small and mid-sized fleets from 1 to 24 vehicles, large fleets is 25. So a lot of people will think that this is good, which in reality it is good, but I always like to say the good, bad, and the ugly. I'm sure a lot of you already know this. Technically, if you're going to be doing this, you have to be able to ramp up. And I think that's Lucid struggling with that, because even the Saudi government, they ordered that 50,000. And of course, that 50,000 could be bumped up to 100,000. But Lucid hasn't really even started to fulfill that. Why are we kind of starting all this new ordering potentially? And even a bigger question is, it kind of does signal, not really a question, but more of a statement, but this does also signal that Lucid is having a identity crisis, because they've always struggled with, like, who is their target audience. They initially thought, and this is why he's brilliant with tech, but business-wise, he was a horrible CEO, because he thought that every single Joe Blow out there in the market, like, doesn't matter of income, they were going to line up to buy a Lucid. That's the way he portrayed Lucid as. And unfortunately, it came to the very hard realization that, hey, a lot of Lucid vehicles are too costly for the average individual. So that's why the midsize is going to be a huge catalyst for Lucid. But even looking at this, like, they're flip-flopping a lot. They don't know how to market their products and who their target audience is. So again, this is just me being devil's advocate. I think that Lucid is making slow progress, but they need to really get a good marketing team on there. And Mark's been in the role for a good, 4 or 5 months now. He technically does need to get on top of it a little bit faster for marketing wise. So let me know your viewpoint on this. Do you think I'm just being too overly critical, or do you think that this is the next big thing for Lucid, just kind of focusing on fleet? Keep in mind, given like tariffs and everything else out there, like there's going to be a lot of things impacting companies buying fleets right now, given the circumstances, right? So it's a very interesting timing, but nonetheless, like I said, shorts did increase roughly around 1.5 million shares first thing. At the time of doing this video, they did return a little bit, but now they are increasing 416,000 shares. 30.74% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 379.07 million shares overall are being shorted. Moving over to the options, you are seeing 403,000 in calls, 1.32 in puts. 58% of all the options being done are neutral in nature. And as I've mentioned, it is neutral only because it's not oriented towards the bid or the ask. So we don't really know whether it was bullish or bearish. But even looking right here, between 945 and 950, there was 941,000 in premiums. And if we kind of look at this and orient it based on premiums, ultimately 925,000 in premiums, and it was a $2 put for December 18th, 2026, so 546 days out. So again, whether they received or paid this premium of 74 cents makes a huge difference. So this is why it's being categorized as neutral. Aside from that though, moving on, the bulls are anticipating for it to be above roughly $2 and $2.50 going into next week. So optimism is definitely not really there for Lucid right now from the bulls. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 250, and it looks as though going into the next couple of weeks, sub $2, sub $1.50. So there's a little bit more overwhelmingly bearishness, unfortunately. But from here, this is the current open interest. So you have 9,000 at that $2 strike price, 37,000 at 250, 29,000 at that 3. So regrettably, a lot of that is going to expire worthless. You're going to have 9,000 at that 2, most likely in the money. So that does mean a small little bump up, but most likely that'll get covered after hours through most likely the dark pool. These are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. Like I've mentioned, it's not all that much. So a lot of the volume is coming and linked to algorithmic trading, but with it right now at 219, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 222 and then 227 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. 216 and then 210 is going to be the next strong supports. So this pivot point of 216 has been tested numerous times over the last week and a half, roughly 6 times at least. So we know that's a good support level, but obviously we can't rely on that. Lucid really needs to put out some news, continue that good momentum, and really push it higher. Like I said, I think it was like 5 videos ago, when Lucid did put out back-to-back news, conveniently, Lucid was doing very, very well, was getting abnormal amount of institutional transactions. Things were starting to move higher, but clearly, people at Lucid didn't really add 2 and 2 together and realize that, hey, maybe the market's actually valuing the news that we're putting out. So let me know your viewpoint on Lucid right now, but looking at all the key moving averages, it's all indicating it's a sell, which I'll go over in a second. But even today, no new analyst ratings, no real articles coming out or anything. So right now, people are just waiting for the next big catalyst for Lucid, and that is just going to be their Q2 numbers. So most likely they'll be out in probably, I would anticipate 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But on the actual chart, it is below all the key pivotal moving averages. Stochastic RSI is in the neutral category, and that's because it did recently have a nice push higher from June the 16th. But nonetheless, though, it is neutral in nature, so it's breaking off of that oversold status. So Lucid right now, I think, like I said, is just its own worst enemy. It needs to put out some news or figure out what the hell they are going to be doing. Are they going to be focusing on fleet? Are they going to be kind of just even fulfilling that 50,000? Because if they focus their priority on that in the Middle East, then maybe you might get another 50,000 order, and that would be more than Lucid has pretty much done in their entire existence. So yeah, I think Lucid does really need to prioritize and figure out what they are doing, whether that be strictly sticking to the Middle East or focusing on the States or Europe. There's a lot of things that, like, you can't conquer the world all at once. You need to set your priorities, and I feel like that's Lucid's biggest problem, is that they thought that the world was just going to bend a knee and just stop what they're doing by Lucid. So I think things do need to change ASAP, but what do I know in life? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon. I give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.